What happened to me was I had a moment in my life where there was a renaissance and awakening of just realizing, noticing, becoming aware of self-development, multiple streams of income, passive and residual income, business building, cash flow quadrants, banking, of course. I just had this awakening of more. Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. My name is Jesse Durham. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to be discussing infinite banking in relation to multiple streams of income. Now, I feel like I had a pretty traditional, conventional trajectory as far as I was told growing up to go to school, of course, make as good a grades as you can there, qualify to go to college. Of course, that was just inherent, understood. That was the paradigm. Go to college, study, and then you're going to step into a successful career through what you study. And I did that, got my 4-year degree, double majored, criminal justice, Spanish, became bilingual in Spanish, had my law enforcement certificate in the state of North Carolina. Before I even graduated college, I was sworn with an agency. And then right after college, my wife and I got married. We honeymooned for 40 days. It was amazing. That's its own story. And then we stepped immediately right after our honeymoon into our careers. She in nursing, me in law enforcement. And I came into that profession with a very linear, again, clear, understood path of, well, this is going to be 30 years of 12-hour shifts, working nights, every other weekend, 2 weeks of vacation, so many sick days. You need to take a percentage of this very, very meager income and invest in retirement plans and 401ks, etc. And it was very laid out, very known. And I was in that career for 3 years or so myself, full-time, and did some part-time work before and after that particular run in my career, and made a transition. Got out of law enforcement completely. A teaching opportunity came open in my county. I'm from a very small county, and to be able to get a teaching position in Spanish was rare. It did not happen very often. So it was a great opportunity for me to have certain changes, of course, in our lifestyle. It was a great chance for me to be sure of working days, to have weekends free for our family activities, to have summers off. And again, I mean, the pay area did not change very much at all. It was meager, probably still is in the state of North Carolina. Respect to all my teaching fellows out there and law enforcement, by the way. But again, I transitioned some things that were improved and better for us just from a family standpoint. And that was great. The income, still meant that as we started to grow then as a family, because we started to have children, we had our first son and then our second son actually while I was still teaching. So I'd picked up part-time jobs to be able to make extra money. I picked up other duties within the school system that I really thoroughly enjoyed. But again, extra income was very helpful at that point. We were growing and expanding as a family. And again, it was very linear, this progression of, in this career as well, it's a 30-year trajectory of teaching these set hours and these set dates with this supply or amount of sick days and leave days and vacation days, and you should be taking a percentage of your meager income and putting that towards retirement plans and the 401ks and the 503Bs and on and on and on, child's qualified programs for college, all these different things. And that linear progression was the same, even though it was in a different field. And after 3 or so years of teaching, I got turned on to entrepreneurship. And here I was, a professional, having made a couple of different career changes, had a 4-year degree, but I'd gone back to school and everything to get my teaching license. So had a certificate as a law enforcement officer in the state of North Carolina, got my teaching certificate in the state of North Carolina, got turned on to entrepreneurship, where I saw an entry with no background check, very little capital required to get started, a proven system and business model with a reputable company. I was exposed to the idea of personal growth and development. I didn't even know that phrase or term. I loved to read prior to that, but it was all fiction and pleasure reading, just for enjoyment. There was nothing in there about personal growth and development in my repertoire prior to 2015. I'm talking 2015 for myself as far as the timeline goes. And that just started what I would describe as an awakening, a renaissance that disrupted this linear progression mentality that I had at that point, that looking back now, I would completely say I was a hamster on a wheel. I wasn't a thinking person. I don't feel like I was dumb, but you don't know what you don't know. That's one of my favorite quotes, and that saying and that mentality caused me to be more open-minded and open to the idea of personal growth and development, open to the idea that I did not know everything, and open to the idea that I should be studying and learning and having conversations with competent folks about many different things. And this renaissance for me meant that I started working for myself. I started learning about systems, teams, the phases of businesses that they go through. I started reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad and Becoming Your Own Banker, and many others that I would highly endorse, that I love, that I surround myself with. I started learning about the cash flow quadrants, the 4 different ways that money is made. And this barrier was just so very low to get started. It didn't cost very much at all. And again, there was a proven system, and there was already, systems in place that someone with no background experience could just tap into and earn as you learn, or learn as you earn. Either way, both, right? And we did earn, and we had a lot of fun, and my family actually got to travel internationally at very young ages, very, very young ages. We were putting our children on planes and cruise ships with us to be able to go up to Canada, to go down to Mexico. We've hit almost all 50 states. There are only just a handful left that we have yet to hit. Of course, we've got our young daughter now. So in my mind, it's a great reason to be able to just restart and check all those different places back off of the map again, and new ones. But it just caused this revelation in my mind about time and breaking the mold, thinking out of the box, having a paradigm shift. And in the context of, because it was in that same year, 2015, that I picked up from a business friend's recommendation, I picked up R. Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker. And I read that book in 2015. And I haven't put it down since. I constantly reread that book. And that was another paradigm shift for me, that I realized in any of these models, because my wife and I, we've participated in different investments and businesses since just being on a linear track as employees. We've done different things to make more money. But the paradigm shift that we had from the very first time of reading Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, was that's great if you can make more money. Who doesn't want to do that? But how can we keep more money? Because if you make more money and spend more money, that might not be the situation that we're looking for. And if we're detached enough to be able to recognize that, then that's where this paradigm shift is so beneficial. And I liked that it was not such a low-hanging fruit. Now, don't get me wrong, it is the simplest idea that you could become your own banker. That I, from reading a book and be able to ask questions from competent folks and be able to catch on by buying a properly structured whole life policy with a mutual company that pays dividends, and using that policy for our family need of finance. By being able to do that and learn as we're actually putting the concept into practice, this was all part of this paradigm shift of being able to keep more money in our family, being able to keep more money from the business ventures that we step into or any investments that we step into. So it was a great revelation and a paradigm shift and an awakening for me. And that's actually Nash's word for himself in his own. And you should read Becoming Your Own Banker and read how Nash even came up with this idea of becoming your own banker, because he describes it as an awakening for himself as well, which is just really cool. For me, a lot of these great things happened at the same time. Learning that we could earn multiple streams of income, that we did not have to work 40 hours a week for 40 years of our life and expect to live off of 40% of what we used to make. That may not have been what we wanted it to be in the first place, and just resign ourselves to that linear trajectory. Now, I'm not here bashing on any profession, any choice that you're making as an investor, as a business owner, as an employee. I'm just simply sharing the ideas and concepts of there being cash flow quadrants, meaning that there are employees, there are the self-employed, there are big business owners, and there are investors. And that folks are fitting in these four categories, these four quadrants in what they do professionally. And then Nash points out in his book that money is made a couple of different ways, and only a couple of different ways. Either people are at work earning money, or money is at work earning money. All right, so if we kind of overlay what Nash is saying in Becoming Your Own Banker with what, for example, and we could talk about others, but for example, what Robert Kiyosaki says in his cash flow quadrants about employees, self-employed, big business, and investors. If we overlap that, we can see that employees are earning money for what they do themselves, what they literally lay their hands to. It's fantastic. And I would point out that all of these are necessary, and all of these are what make capitalism and a free market, or as close to a free market as we can get, such a beautiful thing. Is this mixture, this blend, this assortment. It's fantastic. So the employees are working with their hands. The self-employed, and that could be a range of self-employed or specialists, small business owners. So those that are doing lawn care for themselves, the doctors that are working in their practice, the professional sports players, anywhere where someone is their own boss and they have a lot more control over, the terms and conditions that they're working under, and the income opportunities are greater. But they're in their own quadrant, and they are differentiated from employees because they're working for themselves and they're not an employee in someone else's business. Then you step over to big business. Big business would be companies with, let's say, 500 or more employees that are providing a lot of work opportunity to employees, to individuals that would just like to be able to tap into that system and promote that product or that service, whatever it happens to be. And then you have, and of course, income opportunities are immense there. It's also bigger risks. So there's so many different things that we could talk about. And then we get to investors, and there are lots and lots and lots of ways to invest for sure. Each of these could be their own podcast. But if we overlay those things, we're going to see Nash's two ways of making money: people at work, money at work, and then Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow quadrants. We're going to see that in certain of these quadrants, people are at work, and in one, maybe more than one, money is at work. Okay, so employee is not really spending money, nothing to speak of that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. If you are, you can let me know. I'm open. This is a discussion. This is a conversation. Small business owners, there could be money. There could be capitalization happening for them to get their business up and running. To be sure, big business, Obviously, that would inherently speak of perhaps more money being at work. But again, people are at work in all of those, whereas the investor is probably the quadrant where we see money is the biggest tool at work there. So when I started my entry into pursuing multiple streams of income, passive and residual income, and we've done podcast episodes on those subjects. We'll do more, just like we are right now, of course. But when I started into my entry in pursuing multiple streams of income, I'm so very thankful for having read Nash's book and implemented it. See, my wife and I, immediately after reading the book, we started implementing what we needed to go about getting one of those policies for ourselves. We started on that journey, setting aside money, paying ourselves first, making sure that we were getting our cash flows to go through a privatized banking entity first before it was used for what we would use money for. And we got a policy on me, then we got a policy on my wife, and then we've added 4 more to our system since those first 2. So we've just systematically, over these past several years now, built a system of policy, and we will continue to build on our system of policies to be able to account for our need of finance, to be able to systematically approach how, over the course of our lifetime, we could accommodate our entire need of finance personally within our household, in any and all business ventures that we have, any investments that we make. That way we can account for our entire financial footprint over the course of our life by adding to our system of policies. Now, I know this particular episode is about infinite banking and multiple streams of income. So first, what I'm going to say is, if you are a household, if you are a small business owner, if you are a big business owner, or if you're an investor professionally, in any of those scenarios or any mixture of those scenarios, of course you want to make as much as you can make, and we can have conversations. And this is not advice. This is us having a conversation. So it's not investment advice. It's not tax advice. But what I'm saying is that if you would consider what it is that you're already doing, and then if you're open to the idea of learning about what it means to become your own banker, and you implement infinite banking into running a household, running a small business, running a big business, being an investor, then that automatically puts you in 2 businesses. That can automatically create, again, over the course of your lifetime, passive residual income later on, and a lot of front-end benefits as far as owning and controlling your capital, growing it compoundedly, uninterrupted, in a tax-free way, being able to access capital without interrupting that compounding, potentially having protection against litigation, for sure having protection against inflation. There's so many benefits. And we've done episodes on all the different benefits and characteristics of whole life policy, but that's just a few to begin with. So what I'm saying is, as a household, as a small business, as a big business or an investor, the moment you get your first policy and you're moving in the direction of becoming your own banker, of being able to privatize banking for yourself, that just puts you in a brand new industry, just puts you in a brand new space. It just positioned yourself to be able to pay yourself first, to pay yourself with interest, and to recapture the money. Those are the 3 rules of banking. So to pay yourself first, that would be premiums to a properly structured whole life policy with a mutual company that pays dividends. And then pay yourself with interest, meaning when you access capital from that policy, just like you would access money anywhere else conventionally in the world, you would pay an interest for that. Pay yourself with interest. Value your money, because it does have a value. Pay yourself with interest, and then recapture that money. So if as a household, you're taking a vacation, You're putting braces on the kids, just any number of things. Any number of things. Some appliance goes out. The cars that you have in your driveway, anything. You can access capital that you've set aside for your need of finance as a household. So you can access that. You can pay yourself interest for that and recapture it all. And when I say recapture, I'm talking about recapturing the principal, the interest, any profits, if it's a profitable venture that we're talking about. In the household, it very well may not be. But then again, in contrast, just imagine right now, for one example, imagine the last car that you owned. How much money do you have today from that last car that you owned? From buying that last car? None, right? Okay. What about 2, 3, 4, 5 cars ago? Do you have any of the money of those cars? All right. So my question is like, especially if you're vetting this idea of infinite banking and you're still wrapping your head around what it is, if this is your first time hearing this idea, my question there to prompt your further self-education is, what would it look like if you could get back all the money from every car that you buy into the future? What if you could buy the cars that you're going to buy and get the money back? So whether you're an employee or you're self-employed or some specialist, or you are in big business or in investing, the moment you're in banking, you're now in 2 spaces, 2 industries. Where you were making zero, where you had a 0 rate of return in banking, and everything is finance. So when I say banking, I'm saying that everything's finance. Either we're paying interest or we're forfeiting the opportunity to earn interest on everything that we buy, on everything that we finance. That's banking. So the moment you're in the banking space and it's privatized, your rate of return is exponentially greater than what it was, because what it was 0. Now, I don't think that you can talk about multiple streams of income without discussing wealth. I think that for many folks, the reason to have multiple streams of income is because of pandemics, shutdowns, recessions, depressions, war, so many different things that we can see a benefit to having multiple streams of income, not just relying on one. The days of spending 40 years with a company, getting the watch, having the pension, all those, the gold watch, that thing. Diversifying the different ways that we're making income. And I'm not telling you how to do that. Figure out how to do that for yourself. But what I'm saying is when addressing multiple streams of income, I think that helps us to arrive at wealth. So one of the ways to be wealthy, I would point out, is to keep money in your family. Not just earn more from building multiple streams of income, but keeping more. Well, how do you go about keeping more? Well, one thing in particular that I haven't mentioned very much yet is that when you own a whole life insurance policy, that is a permanent policy, meaning that while you pay premiums and hold up your end of paying the premiums that you have structured to pay, and that's why the structure of a policy is so important, and that's why we should talk. When you own that policy, the company is legally, contractually bound to perform everything in that contract, meaning that with a whole life policy, that is going to culminate at the maturity of that policy upon your graduation, that your heirs or beneficiaries are going to receive a tax-free death benefit. 100% of the face amount of a policy, minus any outstanding loans that you have, and that's relevant to having a discussion about infinite banking, minus any outstanding loans you have, that death benefit goes tax-free to your heirs and beneficiaries. So that's a great way, obviously, to do lots of things, right? It's whole life insurance, to be able to protect what you should have protected. And in doing so, to build a privatized banking system, by having a system of whole life insurance policies, that's a great way to transfer a significant, whatever significant means for you, because I don't believe in a cookie cutter approach to policy structure. Whatever would be significant for you, there will be a significant death benefit for your heirs and beneficiaries, transferred tax-free. So if you know of a better transfer of wealth, tax-free, I invite you to let me know what that is. So in diving deeper on how we get to IBC when addressing multiple streams of income, beyond the face value of simply stepping into banking puts you in a brand new industry, and that means that your rate of return can exponentially increase. Even more so, what I would suggest is that the principles and philosophies in R. Nelson Nash's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, are so very crucial for business owners or for folks that are looking to build multiple streams of income, because we still have to address the human problem, the human issues that Nash discusses. And again, let me point out that he uses in his book a grocery store as a reference, because we can all relate to a grocery store. We probably all enjoy eating. I enjoy eating. You can tell by looking at me, I enjoy eating. So we are a consumer, literally. But also, if we were to put ourselves in the position of being the owner, we can recognize the value of not ignoring these human issues of Parkinson's law, for example. The fact that when people tend to make more, they tend to spend more. Once a luxury is once enjoyed, it becomes a necessity. I mean, I've traveled to other countries where there's not air conditioning, and it's perhaps not always as comfortable as locations with air conditioning. I'm just pointing out something that's so very simple and obvious, and yet it's so easily overlooked. So for those that are pursuing multiple streams of income, reevaluate what Nash says about Parkinson's law. How about the arrival syndrome? Thinking, because I'm sure you're all studs and bosses at what you're doing. But for myself, I'm going to say I'm a perpetual student. I haven't arrived yet. I'm still learning. I'm still looking to have as many quality conversations as I can, read as much as I can, do and learn as much as I can. But, if I can learn from the mistakes of others to be ahead of the curve, to speed up my own learning curve, I want to be able to do that. So just deciding on not having arrived and knowing everything. And, as I popularly say here on the channel, like Will Rogers, the problem in America isn't so much that people don't know, but what they think they know just ain't so. So we think we know the way something is, but we really don't know, because we're not open-minded enough to learning about that. So avoiding the arrival syndrome, that's something that we can do to ourselves. Acknowledging the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. So there's no investment strategy. There's no business venture where you want to have less capital or less access to capital. He who has the gold makes the rules. There's Willie Suttons Law. How about people, whether legally or illegally, would like to deprive us of our money? And that ties directly into taxes. Nash called the Internal Revenue System the greatest thief in the world. So it is what it is. The Willie Sutton Law, it's there for a reason. We can't avoid. We shouldn't. We can't avoid it. As far as acknowledging it, recognizing it, and implementing something to counteract the fact that people would like to legally or illegally separate us from our money. And one more note on the arrival syndrome. Over the past several years now, I've seen and been introduced and invited to lots of different opportunities. And I love that. I love getting invites. I would rather get invites than not get invites. Think about that. You might feel differently. That's fine. Where I've arrived is that I would rather have folks in my life inviting me to see something that they're fired up about, excited about, that they see as an opportunity, whether I do or not. Because what I've learned and what I've picked up is that worst case scenario, I sit down and look at some information that I decide is not for me. It's not what I'm interested in. What have you. Worst case scenario, I learned something. I got to learn that. So worst case scenario, I'm learning. My come from is I'm either winning or I'm learning. There is no winning and losing for me. I'm either winning or I'm learning. And that's a great learning opportunity, being open-minded enough to take a look at something. And that's obviously how we get to multiple streams of income. And that's something that you're probably pretty okay with in listening to a podcast episode about multiple streams of income and infinite banking. Now, ultimately, what I need to stress is that banking, again, like why am I talking about multiple streams of income on a podcast where we're talking about infinite banking so much? Banking is the business that moves all business. Okay? Remember, we've already said everything is financed. Either we're using somebody else's money on their terms and conditions and paying them interest for it while we front the collateral and so many other things. Or we're setting aside capital somewhere that we cannot touch. We do not have access to that while also still being able to grow it. And therefore, we are forfeiting the opportunity to earn on that money, the economic value added. We're forfeiting that. So either we're doing one of those two things, but everything is financed. Therefore, banking is the business of making all of these other businesses move. So it's the single, and this is what Nash says, it's the single greatest thing that we can do to improve our profitability over the course of our lifetime. It's not overlooked that everything is financed and that we can position ourselves to become our own bankers. Now, for all my scripture scholars out there, I'm just going to plant some seeds here, and it could lead to some interesting conversation later on, because I know that our current clients, but also prospective clients, listen to this information. Eden had 4 rivers. Scripture says that a cord of 3 strands is not so easily broken. And it was Elisha that chastised King Joash when he commanded him to strike the ground, that he only did it 3 times. And he said, you should have done that 5 or 6 times. So again, I know those are different examples from, and they could each be their own discussion, but recognize my point that for those of us that have experienced all these different life issues of a contract wasn't renewed, business deal fell through, got fired, got let go, industry collapsed, global pandemic, bankrupt companies, all these different government shutdowns, mandates, all these different things. Oh gosh, I'm saying all these key words right now that could make things interesting. All these things that maybe they're in our control, maybe they're out of our control. Would we or would we not be better positioned if we have built multiple streams of income, and if we are positioning ourselves to be our own banker and not be beholden to someone else? And if that interests you, well then let's carry on a further conversation. And you can reach me at 828-817-4223, or you can email durhamtalents@gmail.com. This has been a great pleasure for me. I look forward to our next conversation. Have a great day. Take care. Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. Hold on a second. I'm just going to say it. This color looks good on me. Somebody had to say it, and I'm the only one in the room. So that's how that's going to play out every time. I'm not going to not say it about myself.